Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Nasty Nelson podcast, brought to you by Pickleball News Asia. If you like what we do, don't forget to like and subscribe. This week, we've got an interview that we've done with Zane Navratil. The chat with Zane was really about his experiences in Asia. We caught up with Zane. Again, it was a few days after he returned back to the US, having done his Asia trip. And we were really keen to speak to him because, one, he has longevity in the sport. Two, it appeared to us, compared to many of the US pros that came over, that he kind of really embedded himself into the Asia experience. We knew that he came over with his wife. We knew that he had knowledge of the Asian market and the way that the Asia players conduct themselves. So we were keen to get his views on his experiences whilst he was here and what he thinks about the future. So getting on to the discussion with Zane, we started off really by trying to understand the significance of the whole period of time he spent here in Asia, which was obviously Malaysia and Vietnam. We knew that as a professional athlete in Vietnam, he must have been a little disappointed to have lost the final. No professional athlete wants to lose a final. But what we asked him, first of all, was when the dust settled on that loss that he had in the final in Vietnam, as he looked back over the last couple of weeks that he had spent in Asia, did he get a feeling that he was part of something special happening in the sport? And so here's what Zane told us in respect of that.
Yeah, I'm obviously was pretty disappointed that we didn't win that match. But I was pissed for, the 15 minutes it took me to leave the venue, the 15 minutes that it took me to get back to the hotel. And then by the time I took a cold shower and, got changed and stuff, I was already kind of in awe of the moment, being able to play in front of 8,000 people. I've had a lot of very, very cool pickleball experiences, and that now is the number one experience I've ever had. Just hearing the crowd roar, hearing the crowd get involved in dink rallies and everything. Honestly, I loved that. So I've said it a couple times since then. It's a day that I'm going to remember until the day that I die, and definitely the coolest pickleball experience I've had so far. So an honor to be a part of that.
Yeah, it was nice to get that kind of perspective on what the whole time he spent in Asia meant to him. I have a feeling that for all of the professionals that were here, when they look back in years to come, they will realize that they were actually part of a turning point in the sport, in actually really seeing it start to go global. And as you can see, even for Zane, just in the time he was here, that seemed to dawn on him. And, this is a player that has been around, as he mentioned, since 2013. He's had a lot of really great achievements. I think he's been an MLP winner. So for him to place his participation in that final as the greatest moment in his career so far just shows how far the sport is come in this region, and that it's more than just buzz. There's something that's really exciting that's happening here. And I wanted to understand a little bit more about, how is this explosion of pickleball really stacking up? Because again, based on when he came into the game, he predates the explosion of pickleball's popularity in the US. He was a pro as it really started to explode and had been playing for some time before that. So I also wanted to ask him if he did a comparison of the sudden explosion in pickleball in Asia compared to when it exploded in the US a few years ago. How did that look? And he also gave us an interesting take on that.
So I've actually been in pickleball since 2013 is when I first started playing. Around 2020 is where it really started to sort of hit that maybe critical mass in the United States. And the interesting thing is, in the US, we were just kind of figuring it out for the very first time. And so I think our growth curve took a little bit longer. In Asia, in Vietnam and Malaysia, I'll talk about, since I don't know the other markets quite as well. You guys can take a look at what's worked well, what hasn't worked well in the US, and some of those barriers that existed in the US don't exist because you have a playbook that you can take a look at from us. So I expect the growth rates to be even quicker in Asia and, learn from some of those mistakes.
I suspect on the idea that we've learned from what happened in the US, maybe Zane has too much confidence and faith in what's going on over here. I suspect that we have not really done a lot of research across the countries in Asia into what worked and didn't work in the US, and that's partly because culture, market dynamics, the way things work over in the different countries across Asia are very different from the US. So I think that there's still a lot of kind of what we term suck it and see, working out what works and what doesn't is still going on over here. I think obviously what's clear is there is a boom here, which is as exciting as what he saw in the US, and it's probably happening more rapidly. But each country is definitely kind of developing in its own way. Even the way that social meets happen is different here from the US and different across Asia as well. So it's interesting to see how it develops, but I guess from what Zane's saying, the one thing that you can say is the level of excitement is at least equal to or even more so than what he saw during that boom during the US time. So I wanted to move things on a little bit because I was also, one of the things that I personally would love to see is that eventually the PPA actually becomes a global tour. So, maybe the PPA Asia is more of a feeder to a global tour that where the players from wherever they may be travel all around the world, as is the case in other sports, a bit like tennis and the Grand Slams. So I was interested to know if Zane thinks that's a reality and maybe how far away from that we are. And again, he had a view on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everybody's goal is for the PPA and MLP to be a international tour, similar to the way that tennis does it. So I honestly feel like these couple of events definitely pushed that timeline forwards. The PPA Asia team is still a very, very small and nimble team, so they're gonna need to get some more help to continue to grow this. But I think it's inevitably going to be an international tour. There's already strong efforts to make it so. I would say within 5 years, it's an international tour, would be my guess.
So for me personally, I also would love to see the PPA tour be a global tour. For me, that would be where I hope that the sport goes. So it's encouraging to see that someone like Zane that is, in my mind, almost like a trailblazer for this happening, because he's one of the people that's making the trips, seeing what's happening globally. So the fact that he can see that and he can see it not too far down the line is encouraging. Although personally, I would hope that it would be possible to see that happen even sooner, because the rate that this sport is advancing is kind of electrifyingly fast. So 5 years seems like an awful long time. That was the time that Zane said he could imagine it happening within. So I guess one of the things that would accelerate getting to a global tour, and one of the reasons why I think a global tour would be good is it would mean that that the main players from around the world, like all of them, would start traveling to this region, on a regular basis. And of course, the Asia players would then be also going and spending more time playing abroad as well, which would continue to raise their game. So one of the things that I thought that would accelerate this move to eventually be able to do a global or an international tour is is the Asia players getting to a level where they're really playing at that level where they're competing for podiums, whether they're playing US players or Asia players. So again, not many people better placed than Zane to give us a view on what has to happen, how much needs to happen, and what things need to happen for the local Asia players to bridge that gap to become on a par with the top US professionals. And it's something that Zane's spoken about a few times since he's been here, but he specifically answered for us as well.
Yeah, so again, this is another thing that I talk about a little bit in my video, which is I feel like the biggest gaps between the Asian players and the American players are first kitchen arrival. I feel like the US players are just a little bit more grooved in getting to the kitchen with those third shot drops or fifth shot drops. There's a lot of very good singles players and a lot of very good tennis players coming in from Asia. And so they have the drives, but sometimes getting caught in transition zone or sort of chaotically, maybe not taking the best drive and crash plays. And on the flip side, I feel like the US players are a little bit better at mitigating those drives. Hong Nam Lee hits a great drive at me. For the most part, I'm sort of neutralizing it, where he might be expecting more free points against some of the PPA Asia players as well. So I think, returners in the States are a little bit better at solidifying their returners advantage, and the servers from the UPA Asia side aren't quite as good at getting into the kitchen rallies and sort of neutralizing that point. The only other thing that I see is I think that we in the US tend to have our shot selection solidified a little bit more. We've played more, we're just more polished, I would say, like for the time being. And that's not a negative thing. It's just we've played longer. Pickleball has only been around in Vietnam and Malaysia. Most of the people that I've been playing against have been in the game for a year and a half. So it's maybe not even necessarily an Asia versus a US thing, but just a time of playing thing. We're a little bit more polished. When it's 9-9 in the third, we know exactly what patterns we're going to go for. We know when we speed it up to this spot, it's most likely going to go to that spot. We understand and have profiles on our opponents a little bit more. And so I think our shot selection is just a little bit cleaner at this point. And honestly, that just comes with playing those high-level repetitions more frequently.
The amount of time that they've been playing in the US, which is what Zane kind of pointed to as probably the biggest differentiator in why their game is more advanced and he called cleaner, better shot selection, those kind of things. That makes sense. The accumulated years of experience can't be replaced, but that doesn't mean that Asia players will have to remain behind, because obviously the US will continue to have that gap in terms of number of years they've been playing. And if you look, at some of the young players that are coming through, you've got like teenagers coming through in the US that are already taking gold medals in PPA events over in the US. And of course, they personally don't have that level of experience. So I think, because they've just come through from just a few years playing. So I think in order to bridge the gap that he defined, to me, what players over here will have to do is they need to go over to the US, base themselves there and play. Because that's the only way the experience will rub off on them then, and they will accelerate their learning by being amongst those players. I think if that doesn't happen, it's very, very difficult to bridge the gap. It's one thing understanding what the issues are, but being able to then learn and execute is another matter. So in my view, or for what it's worth, based on what Zane is saying, that would be what really needs to happen. And hopefully that will happen, because, even with the conversation we had with Kimberly from PPA Asia last week, she was talking about doing things and facilitating more to get players to be able to go over to the US and spend more time in that environment. So hopefully we will see that happen and see the elite players over here continue to rise. The last thing I wanted to know really was whether his experience here has ignited any excitement in Zane, because, as he mentioned, he's been playing since 2013. He's one of the originals, if you want to call it that. So, you know, in some ways you might think he may have thought he'd already seen it all, but I just wonder, with the global growth that he's now seeing, just how excited is he about his future in the sport, given that he already has such a long past compared to many players. He's definitely excited. You can hear what he wanted to tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm beyond excited for my personal future in the sport. So I actually have a deal with the UPA because I wanted to go play internationally a bunch more and just explore the world. I'm going to play 10 international events over the next 3 years as part of my contract extension with them. So I can't wait. I hope the UPA Asia goes to China, India, Japan, all of Southeast Asia, and the rest of the world too. It's super cool to be able to explore these different places, and my wife Jenny was able to come as well. So I'm super excited to be. I feel like I was kind of a trailblazer in pro pickleball to begin with back in 2020. And now I feel like it's going to be really cool to help grow this game internationally and, use the audience that I've created to, try and grow the game internationally. It's been so cool because when I go to these places like Malaysia and Vietnam too, like it helps grow my channel. And I do feel like the videos that I create really provide good value to people. When they see them for the first time, they generally kind of get hooked on them. So trying to bring news and make the pro game more well-known across the world is one of my initiatives. And then going to these places and being there in person was phenomenal. I mean, even just in Malaysia, like this is a follower count is kind of a bit of a vanity measure, but there is something to it. And every single day while I was there, I was getting hundreds and hundreds of new Instagram followers, just people from Malaysia following along with the content. And, the more people that are watching this across the world, I think the better for pickleball. So absolutely super stoked to be a part of the international growth of this game.
What was nice about what Zane was saying there was, even as one of the world's top players, certainly one of the original pros within the sport. Actually, his experiences in one respect are not different to so many other people that are just taking up the game, which is that they find that pickleball gives them something new in their life, a new interest, new people they meet, new opportunities and new things happen just through this sport, which is strangely more social than so many other sports that you could get involved in. And so, and I see the parallel that even at the level he's at, and even with the experience he has, he's still seeing pickleball open up opportunities for him that kind of are not just pickleball opportunities, they're life opportunities. And so it is not just for the person that is retiring and takes up pickleball and finds a new lease of life. It really does impact people in every corner of the sport, and that's quite nice to hear. So that was all we had time for, or that we were able to go through with Zane. I found it, for me, it was interesting. And again, it's just more data points just showing that there is so much happening across Asia and so much still to happen. I mean, interesting that he's got 10 international engagements that he's going to be doing. So no doubt we're going to be seeing more of him as well. And his content is excellent. So we will try to keep tabs on what he's doing and then hopefully have chances to speak to him as he develops his knowledge of this region in the future. Hopefully we can chat to him more. But with that brings us to the end of this episode. And if you didn't already, please like or subscribe. And do check out pickleballnewsasia.com for our daily news updates.